Morning, everybody. Hope everybody is ready for another great reading session. Today, I have been up for a while. I've been for a walk. I have been in my vibe, which is personal development, exercise, meditations, all sorts of really cool things to get the day started, which is a great start to the day. And so now it's time for some reading, which I'm very excited about as well. And then it's into all of the business and goal things, which is going to be good too. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I have it in Chinese. I know that most of you don't speak Chinese, so that is okay. We are going to be reading something in English. The Art of Thinking Clearly. We are powering through this book. The book says, The Secrets of Perfect Decision Making. I'm not sure I always agree with that. I'm going to quickly pin myself for the recording. There we go. And today we're going to be reading chapter 60. We've been doing this for 2 months already. Well, over 2 months since we're not doing weekends. This chapter is called Hurt So Good, Effort Justification. Let's get into it because I know that you have lots of things that you want to get done today, that you're excited by life, and that you have some amazing goals that you want to achieve. So let's do it. John, a soldier in the US Army, has just completed his paratrooper course. He waits patiently in line to receive the coveted parachute pin. At last, his superior officer stands in front of him, lines the pin up against his chest, and pounds it in so hard that it pierces John's flesh. Ever since, he opens his top shirt button at every opportunity to showcase the small scar. Decades later, he has thrown away all the memorabilia from his time in the army except for that tiny pin, which hangs in a specially made frame on his living room wall. Mark single-handedly restored a rusty Harley-Davidson. Every weekend and holiday went into getting it up and running. All the while, his marriage was approaching breakdown. It was a struggle, but finally Mark's prized possession was road-ready and gleamed in the sunshine. 2 years later, Mark desperately needs money. He sells all his possessions, the TV, the car, even his house, but not the bike. Even when a prospect offers double the actual value, Mark does not sell it. John and Mark are victims of effort justification. When you put a lot of energy into a task, you tend to overvalue the results. Because John had to endure physical pain for the parachute pin, it outshines all his other rewards. And since Mark's Harley cost him so many hours, and also nearly his wife, he prizes the bike so highly that he will never sell it, and he obviously prizes it above his wife. Effort justification is a special case of cognitive dissonance. To have a hole punched in your chest for a simple merit badge borders on the absurd. John's brain compensates for this imbalance by overvaluing the pin, hyping it up from something mundane to something semi-sacred. All of this happens unconsciously, and it is difficult to prevent. Groups use effort justification to bind members to them. For example, through initiation rites. Gangs and fraternities initiate new members by forcing them to withstand nauseating or vicious tests. Research proves that the harder the entrance exam is to pass, the greater the subsequent pride and the value they attach to their membership. MBA schools play with effort justification in this way. They work their school days and nights without respite, often to the point of exhaustion. Regardless of how useful or idiotic the coursework, once the students have the MBAs in the bag, they'll deem the qualification essential for their careers, simply because it demanded so much of them. This is so absolutely true. We are going to put disproportionate amounts of effort into certain things and less into others. And we have to be careful of this because this is a real thing that happens to people. And it is important to recognize it so that you don't necessarily fall for it. There are so many times when we will hold on to certain things, such as shares or other things, that we worked hard for or that have gone down or that have caused us pain, that we can better let go of than to keep holding on to them. A mild form of effort justification is the so-called IKEA effect. I'm sure you can see where this is headed. Furniture that we assemble ourselves seems more valuable than any expensive designer piece. The same goes for hand-knitted socks, and yet IKEA furniture is relatively cheap, but we don't want to get rid of it because to us it becomes more valuable. To throw away a handcrafted pair, even if they are tatty and outdated, is hard to do. Managers who put weeks of work into a strategy proposal will be incapable of appraising it objectively. Designers, copywriters, product developers, or any other professionals who brood over the creations are similarly guilty of this. However, when it comes to handmade items, I do believe that it is good to have a higher price for it, because a lot of business owners do the opposite. Even though they have the effort justification that they could fall back on, many people have a lack of self-belief, a lack of self-love, a lack of self-worth, which is the most important part. And they will then put hours and hours and hours into creating something and sell it for less than the time that it took them to create it, because they believe that they need to sell it for little. So there's also the opposite of this. I don't know if the book talks about it in another chapter, but there is definitely also the case where business owners will create something, jewelry or something that they've engineered, and that product, maybe it took them 12 hours to produce. And technically speaking, somebody that works in that industry should be getting $50 an hour, let's say, but they will only charge the equivalent of maybe having only worked on it for 1 or 2 hours, but they've literally worked on it for a lot longer. So that's also something to keep an eye on. In the 1950s, instant cake mixes were introduced to the market. A surefire hit, thought the manufacturers. Far from it. Housewives took an instant dislike to them because they made things too easy. The firms reacted and made the preparation slightly more difficult by getting you to put your own egg inside. The added effort raised the woman's sense of achievement, and with it, their appreciation for convenience food. And that's why we have convenience foods nowadays. So they almost didn't come out onto the market because people didn't like them, because if you only have to put powder and water into a bowl, mix it, and you get a cake when you put it in the oven, it just doesn't seem like you've done anything at all. So if you have to take an egg and crack the egg into it and then mix it and then put it in the oven, it's still just as convenient. However, now you feel like you've actually taken part and you deserve to have a beautiful cake at the end, and that you've actually done some work for it. Now you know about effort justification. You can rate your projects more objectively. Try it out. Whenever you have invested a lot of time and effort into something, stand back and examine the results. Only the results. The novel you've been tinkering with for 5 years and that no publisher wants. Perhaps it's not Nobel worthy after all. The MBA you felt compelled to do. Would you really recommend it? And the woman you've been chasing for years, is she really better than Bachelorette number 2, who would say yes straight away? However, one thing that I'm going to say on top of that is that if you have written a novel and it does get rejected, if you still believe that it is worth it, don't follow the advice of the book. Go out and keep working on it. See if you can improve it. Ask the publisher what needs to change. Because very often we will write something that's just not commercially viable for people. But if we ask for a small little change and what we need to do to make it commercially viable, we might be able to find that tiny little tweak. It might just be one chapter needs to change. It might be the whole thing needs to change. But you can also keep showing that original manuscript to other people and see if it finally gets accepted. Or you can also make the tweaks and see if it gets accepted the second time around. So there are different ways of doing this. So make sure that you have that self-belief, that self-worth. And I think that is really the key to this chapter today, is to make sure that you have that self-worth and that self-love, all of those different things, in order to be able to move forward with it. And Mladen has written, why would we not value if we put effort to create it? The problem is to recognize we all value different things. Others might not value what we value, and that is okay. And Dr. DeMartini talks about this a lot. Absolutely. So yes, we might put a little bit more value onto something, but there's nothing wrong with that, especially if it's your business or if it's something that you have actually put the time into. But you also need to make sure that if you need to let go of it, that you don't hold on to it just because you've put the effort in. And I think that is what the chapter is talking about. But if it's justified, then you need to hold on to that value. Okay, that was chapter 60. I really liked it. And thank you, Mladen, for your input as well. And thank you to everybody that has been on Bigo. I'm just going to follow a couple of people quickly before we go. There's a couple of people that said hello and asked me how I am. So I'm doing very well. I always love it when I have the chance to do some reading in the morning. So it was great having you this morning. And the button doesn't want to work that well today. That's okay. We'll follow everybody else in just a second. Tomorrow, I'm looking forward to reading chapter 61 for you. Why small things loom large. And this one's called the law of small numbers. So very often we talk about the law of averages or large numbers being difficult to comprehend. But tomorrow we're going to be talking about small numbers and the law of the small numbers. So I'm looking forward to that. Have an absolutely amazing day. Feel free to watch the replays if you want to watch more of my commentary on this book, this amazing book, The Art of Thinking Clearly. You can find it at the Passive Cashflow Club on YouTube. So the Passive Cashflow Club, feel free to leave a comment, let me know your thoughts, and it's a great resource. There's also some other things coming up on that channel very, very soon. And then you can also get in touch directly. You can see what I'm up to on Instagram, where I am business_team_6_official. I think it now has official. But if you just do a search for business_team_6, you should be able to find us. And I'm looking forward to seeing you there. And you can also reach out and DM me personally. Have an amazing day. And I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow for another chapter of The Art of Thinking Clearly. Thanks for joining today as well.